Hi everyone, how are you? This is Bethany Gagne, founder of Numinous, the organization that sponsors the Resonant Peaceful Cities project. And this video is the second in a series that I'm doing about heightening consciousness. You see, so many times people think that heightened consciousness, enlightenment, all of that kind of stuff is just like so far beyond what everyday people can do. And I've been in the field of biofeedback for over 30 years, also trained in brainwave training for meditation. And what you learn is that it's, you know, people kind of think there's like regular consciousness and then there's enlightenment. No, there's this whole journey in between. And it's actually a reliable journey. Like there are just certain things that you know you can do that would actually kind of set it up for you to have more expanded consciousness. In fact, that's what we do in the Peace Project. We have a 20-minute protocol that we follow. And the reason why we follow it is because what it does is kind of stack the nervous system in such a way and then expand the energy field to have people kind of just get almost to the launch point more of heightened consciousness, right? And so what would happen is over the years is we would notice that people would do peace projects and they would get, my only word for it was always crazy happy. Because what happens is people are tweaking their consciousness in such a way that they probably have never been in that space before. And then all this kind of emotional processing happens because they're changing their filter and it's not therapy, right? You're literally just changing your orientation to the world, to your consciousness and everything. And because of that, you see the world completely differently. And not only would people get happier, but that they would, all these emotional issues would resolve. I mean, literally this one woman had like a 40-year unforgiveness issue, and it literally got healed in one of our Louisville projects. So so the thing is that this idea of being poised in our nervous system can totally change our commerce with the world. And so that's why I'm doing this series, because people think, well, this stuff is free, it doesn't matter. And it matters a ton. How you are oriented in yourself completely changes your environment, okay? Now, again, this especially comes in really if you struggle with any substances, if you, have a drug addiction or alcoholism or food addiction, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's the same mechanism for whatever substance it is, whatever thing that you feel like you're unbalanced in the presence of, that's exactly the truth. You are imbalanced in the presence of that substance, right? If you suspect it, I guarantee you it's happening. Now, what this week's meditation is going to do is going to have you come into command of your locus of awareness. I call it sometimes your wheel of power. And we're going to have you come into command of that and then plant it, right? So last week, what we did is I had you just start becoming aware of what is your locus of consciousness, and can you at all come into command of it? I wanted you to start analyzing, where is it? Can you hold on to it? Can you hold it in the body? And then I had you practice trying to just, the one skill I gave you last week was to constantly kind of bring your awareness back to the body, bring your awareness back to the body. See, what's happening, especially with the anxiety epidemic, is that people are like out in the stratosphere. Their locus of consciousness is way out in the stratosphere. They're living in their head, which completely what's the word I want? It screws up. It just screws up how your nervous system should be tuned. And then everybody's kind of like all anxiety ridden and everything. And by the way, we got there because all of our consciousness is in our devices, right? Or our food, we're constantly in screens everywhere. So our consciousness is never back home with us where it belongs. And so because of that, our nervous system getting like skewed and messed up more and more and more. And before you know it, we're in high anxiety. Okay, which is, again, same process. It doesn't matter it's the same thing. So whether it's an addiction, anxiety, it doesn't matter. Okay, so last week, I'm just having you, what is this locus of awareness? I don't know, where is it planted? What is it doing, right? And so I gave you that skill. Now this week, what we're gonna do is we are going to come into command of our awareness again, and we are going to bring our awareness down into the lower abdomen. Now I know because I've been doing this for literally 3 decades. I know that most of you are probably holding on for dear life and struggling being able to really stay in command of keeping your awareness down in your feet last week. I knew that. I've been doing this for years. And I'm also going to say down in the lower abdomen is going to be similar. It might be a little easier, maybe not. So a lot of people have resistance to anchoring their mind in their abdomen because in our abdomen is all of our emotions and our feelings. And of course, we don't like our bellies and abdomen, so people get mad at that. And, you know, there's all these reasons why we just kind of, our awareness will just stay in our head. Like we want to stay up here, not feel anything down here. And yet, as you'll come to learn, heightened consciousness is all about the exquisiteness of feeling. Because when you go into those heightened states, even a sadness can have this rich exquisiteness to it, okay? So until we can cultivate our ability to feel, then you won't be able to reach the heightened consciousness states. So this is what we're gonna do. So last week we were just analyzing, can we come into our locus of awareness at all? That's when people say they struggle with meditation. So we'd anchor it back down in the feet. This week, we're anchoring it into the lower abdomen. Now, where in the lower abdomen? About 1.5 inches below the belly button. I'm going to have you locus your hold your locus of awareness there, and we'll have you poke your consciousness around a little bit to help you find it. Okay, it's kind of sometimes referred to as a ball of being. It's known in Eastern traditions as the dantian or the hara, right? Hara is actually the Japanese word for belly. So it's this idea that you are anchoring down into the abdomen about 1.5 inches below the belly button. It is your center of gravity of the body. It is where the earth kind of magnetic pull pulls you from. And if you were to stay poised within yourself and be really well bounded kind of in all directions, so to speak, you would be able to hold your awareness down in the lower abdomen, right? So a lot of times if you see some of the advanced martial artists, like they are so in command of their awareness that they are so planted in the earth that if someone comes and knocks them over, they don't flinch, right? So I remember years ago there was that one thing where there were like 10 young men trying to push an Eastern master, right? And he just was like flicking them off. He was so grounded inside of himself, holding his consciousness so still, and he would just kind of like flick them all off all at once. It was actually quite fascinating. So understand that this is real. Like this isn't theory. You know, there's just, there's this ball of awareness in the lower abdomen. No, this is real stuff. And in Eastern medicine, this is known, it's considered the primary gate for physical health. And so because all of the acupuncture meridians move into the area, kind of blend the energies and pump the energy back out, okay? Okay, so we're gonna anchor our awareness down in the lower belly. Now, what happens is, in the East, there was this whole tradition, of this idea of abiding by the dantian, that you would walk through this world maintaining an equanimity because you were anchored in your dantian, right? So this, and what happens? Then the West gets a hold of this, and then we turn it into an exercise craze, right? We turn it into core training, and we know that this core training is good stuff. Like we could feel the difference, but we have no idea that there's this whole tradition to holding awareness in the core, right? We can feel it when you do the exercise and you kind of feel slightly different. This way we're going to make it so that you know exactly what's going on, that you don't have to do your core training to be able to feel that anchored and balanced, right? Or you can kind of, I should say, magnify what you're doing in your core training to be able to apply this to everyday life. Now, why is this important? Why do you care? Well, remember I was saying that the way you're anchored in the nervous system completely changes your correspondence with the world, completely changes all of your commerce with anyone, anything, anyone, any object, any substance, it doesn't matter. And so what happens is when we get anchored in this place known as the dantian, our consciousness shifts, and I call it kind of shifting into a detached problem solving. A detached problem solving. There's an equanimity, there's a poise, it's kind of like a stance, a way of holding a stance toward life, of being poised towards life. But the most remarkable thing where you really see the differences is this detached problem solving. But let me just give you a more practical thing or another tangible example first. the way I kind of test this or show people this is I have them stand on those wobbly discs, right? And so I have them hold themselves there, hold their awareness there. I have them find their balance, which can often just be challenging there, especially if people have gait issues. Maybe they're older, they've been popping out of the body for years. It's hard for them to find themselves back into the body. So I help them. So I put them in front of a wall, and then I stand behind them and I hold them, right? Now, the reason why I have to do that is because when I give them the task, they often start to wobble like this. Actually, they wobble often when they just get on the discs. So then I finally get them balanced on the discs. Then I'm already prepared because we've been talking about this before they even get on the disc. So I know exactly what's going to trigger them the worst. And so then I say, okay, now bring to mind X, right? And whatever it is, whether it's it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's food, it doesn't matter. They bring it to mind, and all of a sudden they're flailing on top of these discs, like they're not able to hold their power inside their body in the presence of the substance. Okay, so understand that's what's happening in all this substance abuse. That's why I keep talking about substance abuse and addiction, because we're losing people to these substances because we haven't been taught how to manage our consciousness, right? So anyway, so you hold your awareness in the abdomen, and I've literally seen a woman fall off those discs over chocolate chip cookies. Okay, that was her weak food, right? That was her that was her food. That would her spirit would hemorrhage out to those cookies. She'd be upstairs sleeping, but her spirit was hemorrhaging out to those cookies in the kitchen, right? Understand that's a real deal. We'll talk more about that in a later talk, but like that's real. So this idea of being able to hold your power, hold your awareness in your dantian in the presence of your stressor, in the presence of your weakness. And I used to do this in the inner city schools. I would pick 3 types of candy to find everybody's weakness, and then like sweet, sour, and salty, and then I would have sweet, sour, and chocolate. That was it. Sweet, sour, and chocolate. So I'd have them pick like which one was the weakest one they had, and then I would have the kids practice with candy in front of them, and practice all of this. And what happens is they, after. I had a ton of fun. I won't go into stories, but it was super fun. Anyway, so they'd hold their awareness in their abdomen, and you could feel, like at first they were aching, they were longing, they were suffering, literally quote unquote suffering. And we talked about what was going on inside of people when they were having these cravings. And then I'd have them anchor their awareness in the lower abdomen, anchor their awareness in the lower abdomen. And you could see after a while, some of their shoulders would go back, and they'd kind of sit up, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm in control of me. I am in command of my power, and I'm not giving my power to that candy. And the deal was, if they could do that, then I'd give them another piece. So anyway, so there is this dignity that happens, this integrity, this dignity, this honor. And so that's one cool thing, right? Is this nobility that comes out in people when they're anchored in the dantian, this equanimity, right? That staying in command of your locus of awareness. Another thing that really happens is problem solving dramatically enhances, because you're cutting down on all this emotional noise, all this mind chatter that's just getting in the way. We'll talk more about that in another session too. And you are silencing all that. You're muting all that. And you're just almost moving into this place of a stoic in some level. And so you're able to see things with crystal clarity and see things. And so I'll give you one example. One woman was on the discs, and she had run an art museum in another area, but she and her husband had to move, and they had to start this new practice, and she had to become the office manager. And so because she became the office manager, she was an artist who had to be a manager, an office manager in a medical practice. Totally not her deal, right? So so what she ends up doing is she was pretty miserable. And she came to see me because she was pretty miserable. And so I had her on the discs. And one of the things she talked about was having to fill out disability forms, right? She was an artist. Like this was not her gig, right? Doing disability forms. So she talked about the frustration and how this is she literally said these forms were the bane of her existence, right? She dreaded having to deal with disability forms. Anyway, so we got her on the discs. And then as she's kind of getting anchored and she's finally finding her way, she's finding that space inside of ourselves, right, where we're in this poise and dignity. And finally she says, it is kind of fun because it's like problem solving, kind of get into this problem solving mode. And then she said, and I am really helping people. Like, it really helps people, and it makes a big difference in people's lives. And so all of a sudden she had this like equanimity about doing these disability forms, right? And that's the power of heightened consciousness. That's the power of consciousness when people know how to use it. It's like you become a mental ninja, and you can get a hit, like something will come at you and go, and it doesn't feel very good. But the mental ninja, or when you get to these levels of heightened consciousness, you know how to kind of take it in, and you have all these kind of internal skills to be able to switch around and to come back totally resourceful, present, and probably with a great flair, do whatever it is you need to do. Okay, so this week, what I want you to do is we're going to practice abiding by the Dantian. Last week, I just had you become aware of your locus of awareness, where it is in the body. I just had you start to notice that you have a locus of awareness. Other people, there's a lot of talk about attention, but this is your locus of awareness. This is almost like your intention, not quite, but so this idea that you have this ball, it kind of reminds me, if you're my age or so, and they teach you how to read, and there'd be subtitles, and there'd be this little ball at the bottom that would follow along in the words so that kids could learn how to read. It's kind of like that. I always think of the locus of awareness as this little ball that goes around. Where is it right now? Right now, I can tell you it's in my right foot, right? So, and I just was born with this freaky awareness of where my locus of consciousness is all the time. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I will tell you that that's why I do the work I do, because it's this, because it's the truth of who we are. It's the journey that we're all really on, and as far as consciousness and who are we and why are we here, it lends to all of that, okay? But this is just week 2 of the beginning of going into heightened consciousness stages. So that's what we're going to practice this week. Last week, I just had you bring your awareness back to the body, and have you become aware that you have this locus of awareness. And then I had you pull it back to the body. This week, and if you didn't listen to that one, I'd suggest you go back and listen to that one first. Now this week, we're going to take that awareness and we're going to anchor it in the lower belly. And we're going to practice feeling integrity and dignity and poise in the presence of any stressor, right? You could use this in a difficult communication with your child. You can use this in an agonizing moment with someone who's passing. You could use this just when you're bored in the grocery store, standing in line. You can use this as a game. My mentor years ago, you become a geek at this after a while. You're watching a movie and you practice being able to stay anchored in your abdomen, right? And the more you stay anchored inside yourself, the more you get to hold. That's kind of like we're learning our home base, because as you see, we have to understand kind of where we are in space, so to speak, as we start to cultivate consciousness. We need to understand our inner landscape if we're going to use it well, as opposed to just stumbling into a state here or there, and you have no idea how you got there, and you have no idea how you got out of it, and then you say, oh, it didn't last. Well, it didn't last because you didn't even know where you started, you didn't know how you got there, and you didn't know how you got out of it, right? Higher consciousness actually can become this regular thing that I can will myself into spacious states, and some spacious states are not particularly helpful, actually. They feel fabulous, but they can, make it so that like you're, not as efficient or effective. And that's what annoys me a little bit about them. But that being said, it's this idea of being so skilled that you can kind of rein yourself in, stand yourself out, blah, blah, blah. But, you're just a mental ninja, right? And that's what we're going to be practicing in these skills. And life becomes a whole lot more fun. And even when challenging happens, you just see that as an opportunity for more mastery. It's really such a gorgeous journey. It was only theory of mine years ago, and now I get to live it daily, and that's why I'm wanting to share it with y'all. So anyways, if you're interested with more of this type of work, just check out numinusonline.com, numinusonline.com. So think of the word luminous with an N, and you'll learn more about our research. Please share this with as many people as possible, because people are struggling with substance abuse and addiction, and if they had these skills under command, they wouldn't. bottom line. All right, I think that's it. Stay tuned next week. There's going to be a meditation that accompanies this. In the meditation, it's our 20-minute protocol. 3 minutes, we're going to anchor in the Dantian. Then we're going to blossom the heart. Then we're going to bathe the planet in light, because there's some really pretty lousy stuff happening. I don't know if you noticed. And that was the whole point of this originally, was to bathe the planet in light every day. So that's another reason why I'd really appreciate if you send this information out. And then after that, we're going to have you practice being able to hold your awareness anchored in the lower abdomen, and finding that dignity and honor within you. All right. Thank you all. Please share. Take care. Bye-bye.